Ever wondered what it was like to wake up in one of history's greatest cities, ancient Babylon? Forget what you've seen in the movies. Let's take a journey back in time, almost 4,000 years ago, to walk the streets of this legendary metropolis. Imagine waking up not to an alarm clock, but to the first rays of the sun filtering through a small window. Most Babylonians lived in houses made of sun-dried mud bricks. If you were wealthy, your house might be a spacious two-story affair with a central courtyard, maybe even with some greenery. But for the average person, it was a more modest, one- or two-room home. Often clustered together along narrow, winding alleyways. What's for breakfast? Forget your cereal and coffee. A typical Babylonian breakfast would be simple but hearty. You'd likely eat a flatbread made from barley, perhaps with a side of dates, figs, or a drizzle of honey. Barley was the absolute staple of their diet. Used for everything from bread to the city's favorite beverage, beer, yes. Beer was a daily drink for everyone. From the king to the common worker, it was thick, nutritious, and considered safer to drink than water from the canals. After breakfast, it's time to head to work. The streets of Babylon would be bustling with activity. You'd see farmers bringing in their produce from the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. You'd hear the clanging of blacksmiths' hammers and the chatter of merchants haggling in the marketplace. Scribes would be sitting in shaded corners, meticulously pressing cuneiform script into wet clay tablets with a stylus. These weren't just for epic poems. They recorded everything from business contracts and marriage certificates to grocery lists and letters to family. If you were a craftsman, maybe a potter or a weaver, you'd spend your day in a workshop, creating the goods that made Babylon a center of trade. If you were a priest or priestess, your day would be structured around rituals at the grand temples, dedicated to gods like Marduk, the patron deity of the city. And of course, there were the massive public works projects. Like maintaining the city walls or the famous canals, these required a huge labor force, and many citizens would be called upon to contribute their time. Lunch would be another simple affair. Probably more bread and beer, maybe with some onions, cucumbers, or lentils. Meat was a luxury, usually reserved for festivals or the wealthy elite. Fish from the rivers, however, was more common. As the sun began to set, the city's pace would slow down. Families would gather in their homes or courtyards. This was a time for storytelling, for playing board games like the royal game of Iran, for spending time with loved ones. Religion was deeply woven into the fabric of daily life. Families would have small altars in their homes to make offerings and say prayers to household gods for protection and prosperity. The Babylonians were also incredible astronomers. At night, the priests would climb the great ziggurats, multi-storied temple towers that reached towards the heavens, to observe the stars. They weren't just stargazing for fun. They developed complex astrology and created the foundations for modern astronomy, mapping constellations and predicting eclipses. They believed the movements of the celestial bodies were messages from the gods, influencing life on Earth. So, life in ancient Babylon was a mix of hard work, simple pleasures, and a deep connection to the gods and the cosmos. It was a world of mud brick houses and towering ziggurats, of cuneiform tablets and barley beer. It was a civilization that, in its own time, was the center of the world. And its legacy can still be felt today. Thanks for joining me on this trip back in time. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more journeys into history. See you next time.